Okay, hello. On this amazing Friday, I want to talk about self-expression today. This is something I've been thinking about for weeks, I think. So I wrote down a few things that just kind of came to my brain tying up this video. So the things that I'm going to kind of touch on are past attacks on self-expression, attacks on feminine expression, the modern attacks on self-expression towards everyone, free will hypocrisy, and where it's all brought us and this society. So I think when it comes to past attacks on self-expression, the first thing that I think of, right, because we kind of have been talking about this in my master's class, my class for my master's program, where the boarding schools, right, in American history. Young American Indian children, indigenous children, were told to leave their Indian at home. They were taught to reject any self-expression. And I think they were taught and they were being prepped to come into white society to work. Because that's what white society is. It's going to work and it's getting your ass home and getting ready to go to work again, right? That's where we're at. We're in late stage capitalism, okay? And these children, before they came to this school, before they would go to these schools, they were perfectly happy with the way that they were living, right? They loved the stories of their elders. They didn't mind going to the river to get water, right? It was just a way of life. And it was a slower way of life that allowed you to ponder. It allowed you to get to know yourself and to spend time with your families and get to know your families and get to know the stories that came from family that might have passed away. Do you get what I'm saying? So when those children were like, all right, everybody's got to go to school, they go to school and they start to learn that their way of life is actually savagery. It's dirty. It's inconvenient, right? And those children go back home thinking, you know, why don't we have radios? Why don't we have TVs? Why don't we have running water? It's just like, damn. And it's like, you know, they were being conditioned to want quick dopamine hits, right? Rather than a deeper level of satisfaction. That's what we're all taught and conditioned for. We go to work, we're stressed out at work, we come home, we need to buy stuff online. Quick little dopamine hit. We need to order from DoorDash or something, because we need that quick dopamine hit, because we are not being satisfied at work, right? Our brains aren't being conditioned to stay at a certain vibrational frequency and be at a certain level of emotion, right? Everything's vibration and emotions are vibrations. And we as humans get addicted to emotions. That's why some of us live in the past. That's why some of us live in the future. And people who live in the past, you know, maybe they suffer a little bit more with depression. People who live in the future, maybe they suffer a little bit more with anxiety, right? And those are the emotions that we've all been conditioned to cling on to and be addicted to. Fear, anxiety, anger, right? We're all so angry at each other. And I think that's because we're not taught to get to know ourselves, right? So we're angry, and then we have to attack how other people express themselves, right? These children who were told you need to leave your Indian at home, you shouldn't speak your language, right? You need to learn English, okay? Because you speaking is you expressing yourself, right? It's you expressing your thoughts, especially if what you think is in a different language other than English. You not being able to talk about what you want to talk about in your native language is just an attack on self-expression, in my opinion. That's what these people wanted, right? They wanted everybody to just be quiet. That's, you know, something that you're going to see. That's something you see at school. Don't express yourself too crazy. You're going to get dress coded. That's something you see at work. You're not allowed to have different color hair other than what's natural. You're not allowed to, you know, maybe you have a uniform, different things like that, right? You're supposed to dress business, professional, whatever. It's because they want us all to look the same. They want us all to fall in line, okay? Because they want workers. They don't want to live amongst fellow human beings because they want to live as human beings, right? When in reality, it's just like these attacks, which started with, you know, indigenous people and teaching them, you know, you're a savage, you should come over here and, you know, not be a savage, when in reality, these original people, they were partaking in savagery and they were projecting. And that's what I think the majority of this world is it's people projecting, right? It's people projecting their insecurities onto others and making accusations towards others, when in reality, it's just something that they're insecure about. I think a lot of that also has to do with attacks on feminine expression, right? A lot of the stereotypes that women deal with, I think they're stereotypes that have a lot to do with actions that men do. Feminine expression, hyperfemininity is not loved. Women are not loved in this society, and that's why our earth is dying. Mother Earth is out of balance because indigenous people were taken away from their natural state, right? Because women are torn away from their natural discernment and their natural spiritual powers. It's like men might be more physically strong. I think women were always more spiritually strong, and that's why they were suppressed. That's why women were, that's why their self-expression is attacked so much, to keep them stressed, so that they can't tap into certain things that, you know, allow them to be spiritually powerful. It's like everybody talks about the calcifying of the pineal gland and stuff like that. And it's a gland, you know, we have all of these glands in our bodies, right, biologically. And the pineal gland secretes serotonin and melatonin. And it can't secrete a lot of those important chemicals when you're stressed, right? That's why on TikTok you hear so much talk of, you know, your cortisol's up. That's why you're so fat, because your cortisol's up. And it's like, okay, sure, like your cortisol is, you know, raised and your body's clinging on to the fat cells. It's just stored energy, right? Because it's preparing for a famine. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what we're biologically set up to do, is to protect ourselves and to keep our bodies alive. So sure, it's like you got a lot of cortisol, but I think that we should just start talking about it a little different. You shouldn't be wanting to lower your cortisol because you're wanting to look different. You should be wanting your cortisol to lower your stress levels so that your pineal gland can secrete a little more melatonin and you can get better rest at night, right? So your pineal gland can secrete a little more serotonin so that you can have a little more bouts of happiness, and you can maybe tap into emotions that have a higher vibration, such as awareness, bliss, happiness, love, right? Instead of being at the cortisol, addiction, vibrations of anger and fear and anxiety. The attack on femininity and feminine expression and modern attacks on self-expression. It's like, notice how a lot of men who are attacked on the way they self-express, they're deemed as feminine. It's just like it all comes down to the way women are hated and the way hyperfemininity is hated. It's like you'll see men who paint their nails and they might, deviate away from what's typically seen as manly. And mind you, a lot of these men can actually normalize this a little bit faster because they are still men, right? And what they do will be normalized. And that's why you kind of see those posts where it's like, I can tell when a man wears a pearl necklace and paints his nails when it's not really ingrained in his spirit. Do you know those posts? Those posts are actually so accurate because a lot of men will see what's popular and will see what's wanted by women and they'll inauthentically cling on to that, when in reality, the men who were originally doing it are a little bit more of a safe space because they were doing it to express themselves and their personality. And so when you as a woman go and date those men, they're obviously going to most likely let you express yourself the way you want to, right? It's a little bit more comfortable of a space versus a lot of y'all who have boyfriends that get pissed off when you change your hair up, or they find it weird and they're uncomfortable when you're sitting there changing up your wardrobe or changing up your style. It's like they're mad with the change. They're not comfortable anymore. When in all actuality, they should be with you because of your personality. It's sad because then a lot of people feel stuck. And I think when you feel stuck, you feel stressed. So now you're still addicted and clinging on to emotions that are low vibrational, such as anger. You're getting angry. You can't express yourself, right? You're feeling stressed. You're feeling fear. Is this what my life's going to continue to be? Right? Oh, but I don't want to change. Change is scary, right? You have anxiety. That's another one. Do you see how everything's connected? And there are simple explanations for all of this, but a lot of people will sit there and say, it's not that deep. We have been conditioned to not think deeply. It all connects with the attacks on feminine expression, modern attacks on self-expression. And I think that leads us into free will hypocrisy, right? We as humans talk about free will a lot, especially religious people, right? And so I think when it comes down to free will, it's really funny. And I think what made me think about free will a lot is in December, I read Slaughterhouse-Five, and there are aliens in that book, and the main character gets abducted and he asks them about free will, and they say, we don't really talk about free will like y'all do. Like, y'all are the ones, like, really, you think you have free will, you talk about it a lot, but it's just like, I think we truly have free will, and maybe y'all don't. Like, did you ever think about that? Do you get what I mean? It's like, how much free will do we as humans actually have when we're conditioned to make certain choices, right? It's like, I always think of this one situation where a woman will adhere to these social norms that have been social norms for like thousands of years for women, and she will settle with a guy in her early 20s. She'll marry him and she'll get pregnant right away. And everybody sits there and, a lot of women will sit there and criticize her choice. And a lot of people will justify her choice and say, well, it is her choice. But how much of a choice did she have if college was extremely expensive for her? And maybe her husband is allowing her to be a stay-at-home mom because he's making a lot of money, because he went out into a blue-collar job to make all that money. A job that's pretty safe for him socially, right? Because when women go into blue-collar jobs, say she wanted to do the exact same thing as him. He didn't go to school She didn't go to school. It's so expensive. So she goes to that blue collar job. That's not safe for women to do. Women get abhorrently harassed in those jobs. So she couldn't make the same choice as he did, right? She feels like she can't go to school because it's so expensive. That's asking for debt. College and universities in the West, they are debt factories, unfortunately, right? And so what is she gonna do? Oh, she's going to settle in for a man who seemingly wants her and make babies because that's what her mom did and what her aunts did and what her grandma did. So this is what she's gonna do. How much of a choice is that? How is that free will? We talk about free will all the time, and you know, it's just a little bit sad when it's like, yeah, a woman gets pregnant, her partner cheats on her, and then it's like a lot of people are sitting there telling her, you need to, you know, I'll drive you to the clinic. It is that woman's choice to have that child, right? It is her choice. But it's also a choice to have a child for a man that hates you, right? Having children is forcing somebody else into the mix, somebody else into this world that we're living in. We all know what type of world we're living in, okay? And bringing a child here is an interesting choice, in my opinion. Just because you make choices doesn't mean, obviously in our society, that it's not going to be criticized. You always have your choice though. But I think it's important for all of us to talk about the implications that and the consequences that come from certain choices. You have a child for a man that obviously hates you. He betrayed you. You have a child for him. You decide to bring that child into a world where his father would do that to his mother. That's an interesting choice. Okay? When it comes to free will, we have free will when it comes to choices like that. Those are intense choices that I brought up because, you know, it doesn't have to do with just you. It has to do with multiple people's lives, right? But when it's other things that come down to self-expression, those may be choices that have nothing to do with you. Somebody getting tattoos, that really doesn't have anything to do with you. Somebody, you know, dyeing their hair blue, that has nothing to do with you. And I think when people who do partake in those actions to express themselves and those things that deviate from the social norms a little bit more, when those people are talking and expressing themselves and their own thoughts and they get attacked for expressing themselves like that because certain people don't like what they're saying, wow, what are we doing talking about free will, right? When simple things, simple choices that don't affect others are being criticized. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like we have, when your choices affect others, a little bit more criticism is warranted. When your choices affect you, you piercing your face, you know, you wearing revealing clothing, it's just like, how does that affect literally anybody else? I think when that criticism of self-expression gets taunted and mocked and ridiculed, when those self-expressive acts deviate from what is normal and the box that we as Westerners are conditioned to stick to, I think we're being prepped for fascism. Prepping of indigenous children to assimilate into whiteness was meant to get them ready to come to work in white society. We move on in time and children who deviate from social norms are made fun of in school, right? Parents are, you know, criticizing and mocking other women or other people who are deviating from social norms in front of their children, teaching their children negative mindsets towards others who look different. I think that all prepped us as a society to make sure that we all fall in line, that we all look the same once we get to work, that we're all robots, right? It's prepped us for where we are right now. We are a late stage capitalistic society that is quickly descending into fascism. It's disappointing to know that when we talk about these things, a lot of people will say it's not that deep. We can't keep saying that when these things are right in front of our faces. Do you get what I'm saying? So yeah, just a few things for us to think about. Maybe when you see somebody expressing themselves and it makes you uncomfortable, maybe remember that they have free will. Maybe remember that, you know, I wouldn't do that, but they're doing it. And that means that if I wanted to make a big change, I could too. And there's freedom in that, right? Yeah, either way, I hope y'all love this new angle. I think I like it a little more. It makes me a little more comfortable. I'm about to finish this book this weekend, so maybe that's what we'll talk about on Monday. But I love everyone for subscribing. A lot more of you subscribe to my YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, and let me know if you have any topics you want me to think about and talk about, and I shall definitely get to them.